A populist insurgent with a macho man image, untested on the national stage. No, we're not talking about Donald Trump, although the comparison has been drawn with the Philippines president-elect Rodrigo Duterte. Like with Trump, he still has everyone guessing as to what he'll really be like once he is in office. True to his Duterte Harry nickname, he wants Congress to restore the death penalty, to crack down on crime. His tough talk extends to the Pope, reversing a pledge to apologize for calling him a son of a whore over traffic jams during the sovereign pontiff's recent visit there. But he also wants communists in his government to help with land reform, is reaching out to Maoist rebels, and calls for a constitutional convention to decentralize more power to the provinces. Which way is democracy headed in a nation of 100 million, where a fast-growing economy also means rising expectations when it comes to things like battling crime, corruption, and vested interests? Finally, will Duterte honor that campaign pledge to jet ski to an artificial island built by China? As regional tensions rise, what relations with Beijing? And how much will the new president partner with the United States on this? Today in the France 24 debate, we're talking about Duterte Harry. And with us from Bangkok, former member of the Philippines House of Representatives, Walden Bello of the left-wing Akbayan Party. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
From Manila, Nicole Corrado, sociologist at the University of Canberra. She joins us. Many thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
And he teaches at the French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po. David Cameron, co-editor of the Journal of Current Southeast Asian Affairs. Welcome back, sir.
Pleasure.
The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. He'll bring back the death penalty and much more. After keeping silent for a week, Rodrigo Duterte has been speaking. Julia Kim reports on his second press conference in as many days.
Arms crossed and defiant in the face of the world's press, Philippine President-elect Rodrigo Duterte outlined his first policy pronouncements since storming to victory on the 9th of May.
What I would do is to urge Congress to restore the death penalty by hanging.
The Philippines abolished capital punishment in 2006, but Duterte plans to bring it back for a wide range of crimes, including drug trafficking, robbery, rape and murder. The mayor of Davao has vowed to end crime within 3 to 6 months of being elected, pledging to kill tens of thousands of criminals, rhetoric that's outraged his critics but resonated with millions of Filipino voters fed up with the nation's endemic crime.
If you resist arrest, tapos you offer a violent resistance, my order to the police and to the military is to shoot to kill.
But police officials themselves have called Duterte's plans undoable. The 71-year-old is also likely to face opposition for his plans to offer cabinet posts to communist rebels who have battled with the military for decades. Outgoing President Benigno Aquino warned that Duterte was a dictator in the making. But others say Duterte's ruthless stance on crime is offset by his populist measures, like selling the presidential yacht to buy medical equipment. Duterte will be sworn into office on the 30th of June for a 6-year term.
All right, before we talk about the presidential yacht, let's look at the cover of the Asian edition of this week's Time magazine. It runs a black and white photo of the 71-year-old Duterte smiling with the headline, The Punisher. And Nicole Corrado, let me begin with you. Just how important is this issue of crime in the Philippines?
Well, then Mayor Rodrigo Duterte was running on an anti-crime platform. And I think I mentioned in my last interview here that one of his early constituencies are Filipinos from urban centers. And one reason for that is because the issues that he put forward are issues that resonate to a lot of people from urban areas. So in a way, this is now his defining quality as a president. If in 2010, when we elected Aquino, the main issue was corruption, now it's peace and order. So it's still very resonant. And you can observe this in his earlier pronouncements on how he wants to restore death penalty, on how he will give the police a shoot-to-kill order. So yeah, it's very much part of his governance strategy.
But living in Manila, what's your experience, your first-hand experience when it comes to the fact that, as you say, crime was the #1 issue on the campaign trail?
Well, it's one of those things that you kind of just grow up hearing people getting kidnapped, people getting raped, and it's a very real experience for a lot of people in Manila, and that's why Davao is a good counterpoint to how Metro Manila is governed, because Davao has basically created this peace and order paradise, and Rodrigo Duterte claims to have cleaned up this city that has been known for violent crimes in the past.
Walden Bello, your reaction to this call on Congress to restore the death penalty.
Okay, let me just say first of all that I did not.
I was saying, what's your reaction to the president-elect calling for the restoration of the death penalty?
Oh, well, I'm quite upset by it. I think that the death penalty is a barbaric kind of punishment. And however, I am not surprised that he was calling for it today.
Not surprised, and your reaction to the fact that him making crime such an important issue helped him so much in his campaign.
Well, yes, I did not exactly hear what Nicole Curato said. I think that it is an issue that appeals across classes, and definitely for the upper class and the middle class, that's something that is a very, very important issue. But when it also comes to the lower classes and lower class neighborhoods which are drug infested, that's also been an issue. And I'm not surprised if in poor neighborhoods his statement that the Philippines had a drug problem that was worse than Mexico's struck a resonant chord. So I think the crime issue cut across the board, and I think that it appealed across classes.
And has he succeeded? Has he cleaned up Davao in his more than 2 decades as mayor there?
Well, during the elections, there was quite a lot of dispute over that, especially since the administration candidate, Mr. Rojas, basically said that was not true, that there was still a lot of crime in Davao. But I think overall, the impression that one gets is that it is a safer city than most other big cities in the Philippines.
And why is that?
Well, again, when you ask people that, they say that it's because of Duterte's hardline on crime. So I think I think he was able. Let's just say at this point that he was able to project the idea that Davao, was essentially a safe city, and that he was largely responsible for that because of his hardline policies on crime. So he was able to project that. Now the reality is, of course, something that. Let's just say that the projection was effective, and the reality, I think we still have to really judge that.
All right, more nuanced in your view. David Cameron, on this point, we saw on the campaign trail his opponents pointing to human rights groups complaining of death squads in his city. Would you say that he has, what does it tell you that this story about this about crime and how this president-elect has handled it?
Well, Duterte Harry is a kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde figure. He's kind of, at the same time, a kind of crass sheriff of Nottingham, but he's also a kind of vulgar Robin Hood. And the question about Davao, I mean, could make a parallel with the present president of Indonesia, Jokowi Widodo, who also came from being a mayor of a small city, Solo, then mayor of governor of Jakarta to become president. And this is a similar type of trajectory, which also involves giving the impression he listens to his his constituency, the people of Davao. He has been involved with NGOs in social welfare activities. So there's two sides to this. There's this, the death squads, sure, and the extrajudicial killings. About 1,000 people we estimate. But at the same time, there's also been an ability to work on the social welfare of the people, and this is in fact demonstrated both in the opinion polls and the election results. Because where does the support come from? It comes from Mindanao itself, from the south, and this is important as the first president to come from the southern island, but also from the Visayas, where he's originally from Cebu, but also from Manila itself. And the people voting for him are, and this is where there's a difference with Trump, are not sort of the oppressed lower middle class, but the aspiring lower middle class. They're people like call center operators who feel their aspirations are thwarted. And they're very concerned about questions like crime, corruption, and also the horrible transport system, for example, in a city like Manila.
All right, aspiring middle class, you're saying.
Aspiring lower middle class.
Aspiring lower middle class. How do you explain his appeal, his political incorrectness, the swearing? There was a joke once about the rape and murder of an Australian missionary, and yet he's popular. That sounds a lot like Trump in a way. No disrespect to Mr. Trump, but I mean this idea of political incorrectness is a banner that you wave.
Well, first of all, Filipino political culture is very theatrical. I mean, it's really great fun to be in an election campaign in the Philippines. And TV stars, film stars and boxers like the new senator from Mindanao, Manny Pacquiao, play to this kind of this theatrical side to it. So it is taken a little bit with a pinch of salt, this sort of this crass language. But because what's important for people is who will bring the social goods. The Philippines has experienced 6% growth rates under the Aquino administration, quite healthy growth rates, no longer the sick man of Southeast Asia. But we estimate that 2/3 of the wealth generated has gone to the 50 richest families, the oligarchs that still control the country. And that's the key figure. The level of poverty hasn't diminished significantly. It's still around 26%. It hasn't really budged during the Aquino administration. And that's the cause of the frustration and the anger.
All right, a lot of points there. We're going to bring up some of them with Nicole Corrado. First of all, we're trying to get a sense of who he is, the Punisher, if you will, or Duterte Harry, what kind of president he'll be. We heard in that report we saw at the outset, Nicole Corrado, him saying that he wants to sell off the presidential yacht. The Philippine Star, though, reporting on the evangelical preacher who's ready to keep his personal jet and helicopter at the disposal of Duterte, Apollo Quibolo, founder of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, the name above every name, who, like Duterte, hails from Davao. What's your take, Nicole Corrado, on who really backs this president-elect and how he'll really govern?
Yes, actually, it's been pretty interesting, especially in the past week, that the Duterte administration has started forming its cabinet. So you're right. On one hand, he is really a maverick. He's this sort of political outsider from outside Imperial Manila, using gutter language, appealing to the basest instincts of a lot of Filipinos. But on the other hand, if you look at the cabinet he's formed in the past week, it's really one of the most traditional cabinets. It's old names, it's an old boys club. There was initially a promise to form a Trudeau-like cabinet of having a gender balanced cabinet with ethnic minorities, with people from various religious backgrounds. And then you see this old boys club. So on one hand, there is that very traditional aspect of his approach to governance. But on the other hand, you're right, there are these proposals of taking the jet or the airplane of this pastor. He actually proposes to commute from Manila, the capital, back to Davao every now and then. I would like to just see how this develops in the coming days, especially when issues of presidential protocol kicks in. For now, in the last press conference that he had this afternoon in Manila, it feels like he keeps on having all of these maverick ideas, but if this past week has been any indication, then I would imagine there will be some form of concessions on his part in terms of how radical or how much of a maverick can he really afford to be once the pressures of governance start to kick in.
Nicole, it sounds like we don't really know how he'll govern.
Yes, in a way, yeah, it's you can look at it on two sides. On one hand, yes, there is a lot of unexpected or things that we cannot predict at the moment. But on the other hand, if we see the past week as any indication, then a lot of it is also pretty predictable. I think in terms of the appointments or the space he's created in the past week for various political players, one of the more interesting things that he's done is to open up the cabinet to some members of the Communist Party of the Philippines. That's a pretty big deal, bringing in a very, very broad coalition of people from the Communist Party sitting alongside people from the military. So in a way, that's also another thing that we have to look at. A lot of analysts, especially from Davao, are saying that this is really part of the mayor's overall strategy. Even as a mayor in Davao, he was actually able to bring a very broad coalition in order for him to get concessions from various conflicting parties. So I guess what I see here is he's trying to replicate that on a national scale, have that broad coalition tied by some common interest of stability.
Walden Bello, saying that he wants to bring in communists, most notably to deal with land reform, reaching out to Maoist rebels. Would you say he's playing his cards right when it comes to forming his cabinet so far?
That was a big surprise to me that he would really take this fairly radical steps of saying that he would appoint as cabinet secretaries for the Department of Agrarian Reform, the Department of Labor and Employment, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and the Department of the Environment, people who would be coming from the Communist Party of the Philippines. On the one hand, you're definitely right that there was this side to him that there has been, that's been quite progressive on social issues, but to appoint people from the Communist Party of the Philippines was for me a big surprise. So there's been, for me, that's overall quite positive.
And if you were a betting man, would you say that land reform is possible in the Philippines today?
Well, this is precisely one of the big failures of the Aquino administration, in that there was a strong law that basically I was one of the co-authors, but the Aquino administration did not really implement it. Now, a big problem has been the resistance of landlords to this, and I think that having somebody associated with the Communist Party as heading up the agrarian reform program, I think will give this program a lot of punch, because if there's any force in the Philippines that can discipline the landlords when it comes to this, it's probably going to be people from the Communist Party of the Philippines. So I think this appointment, and the other big issue that we have is centralization, or the lack of regular jobs, because every job, I'm exaggerating, but a lot of jobs are on a contractual basis. People can't get regular work anymore, and there's been a great popular demand, to end contractualization and bring back regular work. So I think that appointing somebody associated with Communist Party to this position, I think we can probably see that this will be a person that will take the demands of labor seriously. Now, of course.
All right. So how far reform can go? Also, what relations with the Philippines' neighbors, most notably China? We'll be talking about it when we come back. You're watching the France 24 debate.
I will control drugs. I will control crime. And I repeat, the predicate of it all of my statement is, I'm willing to lose the presidency, my life or honor.